The Innovation Agency, in short form Kenya, is mandated to develop and manage the national innovation system that catalyzes and facilitates taking ideas to market. So taking ideas to market has to be manifested in form of startups, in form of enterprises that are emerging out of ideas and research. And therefore, our interest is to make sure that the various components that make up a national innovation system, that includes funding, skills, technology, methodologies, innovation hubs, the policy environment, all these things are functioning at an optimal level in order to spur as much ideas going into market as possible. So today we came here to celebrate some of the efforts that we did last year, which is one of them being the Kenya Innovation Week, which we had set up somewhere around mid, and we ran it between the 6th and the 8th of December 2021. Very successful event that had private sector, it has startups, it had government, funders, a lot of exhibitors and so forth, and we had lots and lots of resolutions out of it. So we came to reflect on these resolutions and the roadmap of what we're going to do over the next couple of months ahead of the next Innovation Week, which we have planned for 8th to the 10th of November. One of the things I think you asked about where we're going, there's a lot of enthusiasm about innovation. And for us, we have a very simple definition of innovation. It's change that adds value. Change that adds value means you can innovate in any sector, and you don't have to build a startup. You can actually change the way things are working in your office, and in a way you've innovated. You can actually do this at home, and you change it the way you do things, and life becomes a little better, less painful, less costly, and so on and so forth. I think as a country, there's a lot of excitement. We now have over 100 innovation hubs across the country. We've got over 1,000 startups at different levels. VCs and angel investor networks are growing in the country. We are seeing startups attracting a lot of funding and growing. But then that becomes more like a wake-up call and say, okay, so where do we want to go the next 10 years? All right? Because unless you define the destination with modest clarity, then you don't muscle the energy together. Otherwise, some people do other things that may not necessarily support your agenda. So one of the things we have committed ourselves this year is to develop the 10-year Kenya's Innovation Masterplan. Now, we're working with a number of partners to shape the Masterplan that identifies, first of all, where are we, what challenges are we facing, what are our strengths and priorities, and how do we energize that going forward. So issues of governance, coordination, funding, acceleration, programs, investment, and so forth. We're going to be defining that in the master plan, and we expect to launch it at the Innovation Week of 2022 between the 8th and 10th of November.
And of course, binding it in with the master plan, we do have the startup bill that is also being looked at. How is this going to play into the scope of things, to also alleviate the challenges that might come with innovation, such as the disconnect between stakeholders or education, skills? How do we do this?
Okay, so thanks. So first of all, the reason why we do a master plan is gives a general sense of where we want to go. Then you must have specific instruments, tactics and strategies in between there, along the way to help you stay on track of that master plan. So you've just mentioned, for example, the startup bill. Not a perfect document. No document is ever perfect, but it's a start point. First of all, it shines the light on the startup agenda. And startup agenda will tell you our challenges, access to market, incubation programs, technology transfer, funding, and so on and so forth. Incubation systems and how they function effectively, and so forth. So the startup bill is trying to address this issue from a regulatory perspective and say shine the light and provide specific support. Now, Kenya National Innovation Agency will be responsible for the operationalization of that startup bill. So once it becomes law, then we will start putting the systems in place that then operationalize that startup bill. A couple of other initiatives that we have in place that support that journey to of the master plan include an annual innovation index. We're going to generate on an annual basis that points how are the universities contributing, how are the startups contributing, how are the accelerator, how is funding looking like, how is research shaping, how is policy shaping towards that master plan. So we've got a series of outputs and mechanisms to support us in that narrative of building to the destination of the master plan.
Indeed, thank you very much, and thank you for your enthusiasm. I wish we had more time to speak to you, but now we also have to speak to a stakeholder. Brian, you must allow me to also rope in Mr. Philip Thigo from Thunderbird School. Talk to us about how exciting this space is right now. Are we in the right time in this generation? Where are we headed?
No, I think perfect. And Kenya, as always, has been a leader in technology innovation. I come from the Thunderbird School. We're the #1 school in innovation, but also we're the #1 school on global management. And so basically, if you see why we are here and why we've invested in the Kenya Innovation Week, is because we believe it's not just the right moment, but Kenya in itself is poised to lead in this new revolution. We've seen in the last 2 years that technology is everything, affects how we live, learn, work, communicate. And therefore, you have a country like Kenya that has decided to be the vanguard of vanguards, but also not necessarily just the right moment, but also has the right ecosystem. You have innovators, you have private sector, you have civil society, you have government leadership that then is driving and connecting a lot of these innovators. You also have international organizations like the United Nations that is seeing the opportunity, but also the capability of wielding all these innovations for development, because it's just not about technology for vanity.
Of course, what should viewers out there look forward to in terms of looking into innovation? Because innovation has also helped them survive the tragedies of COVID and all these economic turmoils. What should they do at this point?
I think at this time, it's self-belief. I think it's a mindset. We understand now that COVID has told us that in most cases in a pandemic at this scale, you sort of have to depend on yourself. And so how do you kind of nurture that spirit of innovation so that you're able to understand these are the problems we have, but also these problems create opportunities. And we saw what Kenyans were able to do in the last year. But then I think it speaks about resiliency. And I think we always hard on ourselves. I work for a global school, so I know this. I've seen many countries, but also I've seen how Kenya has turned COVID-19 into an opportunity. So let this just not be a moment. Can this be a lifestyle in a way that we turn all our challenges into opportunities?
Thank you very much for speaking to us here on KBC. Obran, there we have it. The challenge there is for also yourself. I hope you have innovated as well to diversify your revenue stream and also create jobs and wealth for the entire nation. Back to you.
Well, very interesting there. And you know, yesterday the annual wealth report came out, which is issued by real estate company Knight Frank. And you know what they said? That Kenya is making many new millionaires out of technology. And we're talking about metaverse, blockchain, as well as trading in cryptocurrencies. So that is the new frontier for young millionaires. So you need to go through that report and see yourself how you can fix yourself. Because the report was actually saying new millionaires in Kenya are being made through entrepreneurship. So if you are planning to become a millionaire, then entrepreneurship is supposed to be